Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I'm your host, Rex Bear, and we have Joseph Reyna with us, the author of Incredulous, and this guy knows so much about prophecies, ancient relics of antiquity. We're going to talk about a quasar right now, literally. How did you describe that, Joseph? Like an exploding solar system almost?
What's the entire galaxy becoming a star? Something the size of a galaxy that becomes a star is what they figured out quasars are.
Okay, and we're also going to talk about Antarctica and what is going on out there right now. Now, Joseph just disclosed some information with me about how there is a civilization, literally multiple civilizations that literally flash froze in Antarctica. So this is very deep. We're going to talk about some Planet X / Exodus / the flood, NASA, and these 7 planets that have been discovered, and just a collection of things all combined into one. So it's a real honor to speak with you, Joseph. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. I had thought I'd start talking again only because of the resurrection and Easter coming up. So I wanted to link how Planet X seems to be part of all that.
Fantastic. And also, I mean, I know that you have done very few interviews over the past few years, and it's neat that you're kind of jumping out and getting your feet wet again.
Thanks. There was a time there where the information I was finding, I did not want to go on the air and say something I shouldn't be saying. It was really bad, what I was discovering.
Well, let's get into it. What's going on? First, let's get into Antarctica if we can.
Well, apparently, Secretary of State Kerry was sent down there. I believe Obama's gone down there. I know the Pope has gone down there. Several states, leaders of state have gone down there. And it's supposed to be to get them ready for what's about to happen, a sort of disclosure. Except from what I'm hearing, they don't want disclosure. They're removing the bodies of what's called the pre-Adamites. Pre-Adamites were the species built before us, genetically engineered before us. They have a much longer skull. Sometimes the skull goes straight back, kind of like Nefertiti, and other times it flattens out, kind of widens to the back, much like the Greys type of skull. And they're taller, and they have a funny body because they have a longer or more vertebrae in their backbone. So it's kind of long, and then they got the little pot belly. The way Akhenaten is portrayed in the images from Egypt, they have those type of bodies, almost a feminine-like body, flat chest, very little muscles for the masculine, and large hips, this little pot belly, and a much longer torso with an elongated skull. So those were called the pre-Adamites. They were far more intelligent, and it became troublesome, so they went to the newer version, which is us. We have shorter lifespans and limited capacity for memory. We're sort of wiped when we're born. We don't have access to those memories. And then we also don't have telepathics. So we're the second species that followed. And much of that is in a lot of the writings of the Hebrew. Not everything that was in the Hebrew writings were put into the Bible. They had to decide what was going to go in and what was going to stay out. And this one they decided to leave out because it was just too troublesome, and they went with the creation of Adam and Eve and left the other one out altogether. So that's what they're finding down there. Now, this civilization is supposed to have been flash frozen, and I know we've spoken before about the possibility that Earth is not that old, only 12,000 years old because of the galactic battle that took place between the reptilians and the Anunnaki. If that were the case, then Earth would have broken away. Much of its atmosphere would have been gone. It would just be basically what would have been an island on that particular planet the size of Saturn. Would have become a sphere and then would have tried to, I guess, regrow life on it. It would have kept some of its atmosphere, but would have lost a lot of the oxygen. We used to have 50% oxygen in the snow core. They find that before 12,000 years, we had 50% oxygen. After that, it's down to 20%, 19%, somewhere in there. But to flash freeze these beings, there's also giants down there and dinosaurs that were flash frozen. The mastodons, I understand, are 3 times the size of an elephant, and they were flash frozen. And to flash freeze, a pole shift would not do that. pull shit would change, you'd have time to go grab a coat. You don't have time for that when you're flash frozen. You're basically mid-stride, completely stopped. All your blood vessels freeze, everything freezes. It's way too fast. And from what I understand, they're removing these bodies. They've been down there for over 12 years, filming, removing, very sophisticated technology. And they're eventually going to have some sort of tour down there, I guess you can take, and walk through these ruins from what David Wilcock and several others have as well. There were 3 spaceships that crash landed there. Again, it was 12,000 years ago, right at the time of that galactic battle. And they speculate that these individuals landed there because there was already an ancient civilization there, dating back millions of years. And of course, that would have been Tiamat, part of Tiamat at the time. So they landed there. The ships couldn't get back off Earth, so they started, I guess, building cities around there. Again, this would have had to have been Tiamat, not Earth, because once Earth took place, these guys were flash frozen in position. And they know that there's the tropical jungle down there. I believe 65,000 square miles. That was all flash frozen. So Antarctica was at one time a tropical location, and it was flash frozen very quickly. Plato puts it right at about the same time, 9,000 years before him. And he said it all happened in one day. So if the explosion occurred within a day, Earth would have sort of corrected itself and started trying to heal. But anything along the periphery where the atmosphere was completely ripped off would have been flash frozen. And
now can I jump in real quick to just
Sure.
confirm a couple things? Because this is very interesting. And first of all, what would cause the flash freezing? And you said we're kind of the 2.0 version because the first beings, or not the first beings, but the ones with the elongated skulls like Akhenaten, essentially, they had longer lifespans, and it sounds like they had more intuition. But why were they a problem? And are you referring to the Anunnaki creating us and creating them essentially in these physical meat sacks?
Yeah, pretty much. But you have to also throw in the reptilians, because the reptilians needed more warrior-like individuals. And if you take a look at these guys, they're not warrior material. So they would have modified us. And we came afterwards, and then the Anunnaki took what the reptilians had modified and tried to sort of bring it back in line with what they were. And that's why we ended up the way we've ended up. Very warlike, sex maniacs that have short lifespans and become very aggressive at sometimes. It's sort of hardwired into our nature.
So essentially our beings have been tampered with from multiple off-world beings.
Yes, and every single one of these groups that I hear that are trying to do, I guess, make contracts with the humans on Earth, they have to go through all these other species that already have, I guess, programs, they call them, on Earth, where they've been abducting people and trying to get them to meet someone else, sort of prearrange it so that they'd be attracted to this individuals. They're looking for a genetic breeding sort of system. You've heard of those where the Greys were abducting women and creating a hybrid species.
Oh, yeah.
With
Absolutely.
some of their cells. Yeah, that was really fascinating. These women would be like 3 months pregnant, and all of a sudden they wouldn't be pregnant at all. And they go to the doctor didn't want to hear anything about it. So they didn't have anyone to turn to. But those things they're creating are not human. And you can't take a child, especially something that's predominantly genetically human, and just keep it in isolation. Don't hold it. Just leave it in a corner to develop on its own. It's going to have psychological damage, and it's probably not going to live past the age of 14. Humans have to be interacted with. They have to be held. You have to play with them, or they don't develop properly. So that seems to be a big problem for them. And then once they're down here, they don't know they don't have any common sense. I mean, I've seen people with no common sense who were very, very intelligent. These people, they just do not know how to blend in. And I don't know that they ever will. Supposedly that's what they were trying to do.
That sounds like Dr. Jacobs' work. He says that a lot of the people that he regresses that have been abducted, they're trying to get them to show them how to walk across the street properly and how to act when you go in the kitchen and just normal stuff, like he basically said, common sense.
How to set up furniture in your bedroom, yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff.